Welcome to the Launching Legacy podcast, the future of aviation and aerospace, the show where we unpack how aviation and aerospace companies are launching into their next level of growth and what's on the horizon for the sector as a whole post-COVID. My name is Katrina Douglas, your host, and I've been helping organisations increase their marketing effectiveness since 2006. And I'm excited to share some extraordinary insights from the aviation and aerospace industry on what lies ahead and how we together can increase the visibility of the industry and the companies in it. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Launching Legacy, the future of aviation and aerospace. The podcast where we bring you what's new, what's on the horizon, what you can expect, innovations, and just great insights into what's on the horizon for aviation and aerospace. My name is Katrina Douglas. I am your host and the founder of the Launch Strategist. And I am joined today by Kai-Tse Lin, the co-founder of Bellwether Industries. Welcome, Kai-Tse. How are you?
Good. It's really great to be on the show, and thank you for inviting me, Katrina.
You are welcome. This conversation has been brewing for a while, so I'm so glad that we've been able to, finally make it happen, Kai-Tse. Some great things happening at Bellwether, which we're going to go into, but you've pretty much been all over the globe in the last few months. So, it's really good to actually be able to sit down and really dig deep into your journey and the journey of Bellwether. So I guess let's kick off with the first question. So Kai-Tse, what is your story? How did you become the co-founder of Bellwether Industries? How did you get here, first and foremost?
Yes. So I've been working on this for quite some time already. So, the company Bellwether Industries was registered in London in 2019, but the story can be, I would say, dated back a while even before that. So probably 10 years ago, when I was still a college student, my co-founder Daniel and we have been working on getting the vehicles off the ground. I mean, building vehicles, building great products has always been the center of our mind. Given the background that we had in industrial design, we have been exploring how can we bring a better product or lifestyle to people. So not necessarily only vehicles. So that would also go to the core of Bellwether, that we are centering around like users, people, rather than a single product.
Right.
But that's sort of like the starting points that we were thinking about transportation itself, that people are now moving around in cities. Cities are getting more busy and busy. There are a lot of different challenges. And these kind of challenges, we definitely need to explore different kinds of options. And cars are being similar. I mean, right now, cars are being developed in the past century. They're all focusing very much on the functionality, or on let's say minor changes. And I wouldn't say it's a bad thing at all, because this is how evolution is happening, right? They develop products and then they optimize it. Then they would ultimately become a form that people would agree on. That people all like. That's also based on how users would want. But sometimes you also need revolutionary sort of products to bring new ideas. This is like how we always say, like, smartphones was a new category or new sector of products, replacing traditional mobile phones. That we're doing just all right, with our mobile phones, when we were having sliding keyboards, flashing lights, and musics. So people were a bit mad about when you're launching a phone that you need to charge every single day and no keyboards. But that's where we think right now we're entering cities, that to solve congestion problems, or maybe just not solving it, but provide another options to avoiding congestion problems. You need something specifically tailored for city environments. So that's where we started.
Excellent. So before we get into what Bellwether Industries does, there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. one, what was the major problem that you were trying to solve with Bellwether Industries? And also, you said that you wanted to build the company around a type of person as opposed to product. So could you explain to me who that avatar is, who that person was? So yeah, those two questions.
Sure, absolutely. So when we talk about users, I mean, we started off everything in understanding cities as environments. Let's say urbanization is going to, I mean, it's already a very serious problem. It's only getting worse in a sense.
Mm,
I mean, for living quality wise, I mean, for economic, probably it's better.
yeah.
But people are moving into cities. You know, we live in London, for example.
Mm,
When we're just traveling from where we stay in Canary Wharf to city center, like Design Museum,
yeah.
like Kensington, it's an hour, probably
Yeah.
sometimes more than an hour, which
Yeah.
is a bit crazy because it's not that far away.
Mm,
Uh, but sometimes it's traffic, sometimes given the differences of cities,
yeah.
maybe London is already quite historical as well. The infrastructure, the nature of transportation.
Mm,
So we're developing something that is addressing everyday commute
yeah.
problems.
Mm,
Let's take London, for example. Most people travel for under 5 kilometers
yeah.
to commute, rather than going to different cities every
Yeah.
single day.
Yeah.
That's sort of use case that we're looking at as people are suffering from traffic problems are
Mhm.
private transport users. They either drive cars or they take cabs. They are not taking public transport. So
Yeah.
these are different kinds of users that would require different sort of solutions.
Yeah.
Um, so when center around understanding the users, we don't think just bringing a vehicle that can fly,
Mm,
and then modify the designs from current
yeah.
product
Yeah.
would cut it. So that's why we believe we need something completely new
Yeah.
rather than just scale up drones or scale down airplanes.
Yeah.
That's sort of
Yeah.
ideas that, especially when we're starting off with our design background. You know, design jobs is not only to use current products or to make some sketches or simply just the styling, the look.
Mm,
It is about users. So it is about how do we bring technologies to be applied to users, to the market, and then to make it user friendly or environmentally friendly.
yeah. Excellent. So now let's talk about what Bellwether Industries is, the products that you make, and the aircraft that you're actually working on at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bellwether Industries, as mentioned, was a company registered in London in
Mhm,
2019.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, we are focusing on developing solutions for a better urban mobility.
Yeah.
So basically, we started off with an aircraft itself. We call it the Volar. So
Mm,
Volar is a type of aircraft that we define for city transport,
yeah.
for daily commute. It's a category, so basically like cars.
Mhm.
There might also be other companies bringing their own Volars as a category.
Yeah.
And Volar would need to meet certain criteria like vertical takeoff and landing, very compact, very compatible with city environment, using green energy, environmentally friendly, and so etc. So it is about bringing the best user experience and also to fit in the environment. It's not only about pilots or passengers. It
Mm,
is about millions and millions of people that are actually living in cities that need to be considered. So we also often also talk about how we're engaging with authorities and governments. We need to understand that they are not uh, planning all the regulations or certifications just by the performance of the vehicles. They're
mm.
actually serving people.
Yeah.
They're serving the whole cities, the whole citizens. That's why they have all these regulations.
Yeah.
So you can save energy, you can be efficient. That's totally fine. That's absolutely important. But the most important thing is actually to make people accept these kind of technologies and make the market accept it. So that's also the reason why we want to hide everything inside, want to make it very safe and very
Mm,
accessible, is to make the vehicles physically and mentally safe to people.
yeah.
So that's sort of the core idea of starting off the vehicle like this, but we also want to be more than just an aircraft manufacturer.
Yeah.
For Bellwether itself, I mentioned, we are targeting at solutions for urban mobility or urban, city
Mm,
environment. So the vehicle is just a starting point. We're building like starting off with the technologies and then different kinds of solutions like to address transport systems or infrastructures. And of course, we're very open to partner with like-minded companies or people that
mm.
want to make our environment better.
Yeah, absolutely. So Volars are essentially, they look like a hybrid between aircraft and cars. Would you say that that's correct?
Um, I would say it got a foundation of
Mhm.
different sort of industries and background. I think this is
Yeah.
also what that we're saying right now. This industry, advanced air mobility or urban air mobility, got a strong combination of a huge area of different industries. Like right now, a lot of automotive or aerospace people are joining this field.
Mm,
So essentially. These kind of aircrafts are forming up a new industry.
mm,
So it's new for everyone,
yeah,
but it's not like completely new for everyone. That's why I would say the reason also we designed the vehicles to make it feels like car in a sense.
yeah.
We want people to make to feel like this vehicle is familiar and it's something
Mm,
that we want to use for our everyday commutes, or we want it to be used in the environment that we're living in. So we want to have a sense of similarity that people don't feel like this is gonna hurt the environment,
yeah.
uh, just by the design of it. And of course, we are using technologies from a lot of different places that might give you a strong sense of this is not completely alien.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you go from studying at university to doing your design and engineering kind of background to deciding that you wanted to design something that was completely revolutionary because it is revolutionary and innovative in the truest sense. So it's taking things that already exist to a degree, but making something completely new. So, how did you decide, you and your co-founder, going from university, that actually you weren't going to have a traditional job, you weren't going to go down that traditional path, but not only were you going to go down the entrepreneurial path, but you were going to create something that just does not exist, that is completely revolutionary. Take me through your journey and that mindset and just how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think I would say starting Bellwether or starting in
Mm,
develop a company that develops products, aircrafts was not the intention at all.
mm,
The whole point while we were doing it in the universities was simply to create an idea
yeah.
that whether it is possible. Uh, there are a lot of factors that actually make us to become like co-founders of companies. Uh, so first of all, this has been a long journey for us. For instance, like while we were still in college, we were just simply exploring the idea, and we
Mm,
handcrafted our very first hovercraft when we were still college students in Taiwan. It was not easy. I mean, we spent days and nights just to build uh, a model and then
mm.
demonstrate that we're able to make it hover. And it was not a small model. It was also half size, so roughly
Wow.
2.5
Wow.
meters of size.
Yeah.
At that time, I mean, we were still students. We couldn't make it like completely to fly in the sky, but we
Mm,
did make it hover. It was a very big moment that we proved that we are able to create a vehicle that is having all the propulsion system completely hidden inside, and we can
mhm.
still make it work.
Yeah.
And that was the very first moment that we realized we can continue to develop this idea. And then we took it to London. That's where
Mhm.
we pursue further with our masters at intelligent mobility. I think that inspires us a lot to think deeper into what kinds of uh, purposes like we would
Mm,
really need to work on and to
yeah.
develop the vehicles for. Um, and then we develop sort of like second generation, which is Model Antelope in London.
Yeah.
we put in a lot of effort, and the core reason also to make it as a company is that when we're working on a global level with a lot of suppliers that they're having experiences working with big companies and great
Mm.
products, we get sort of recognition from the
Yeah.
suppliers,
Yeah.
and we get pushed actually from our suppliers, from our partners, that we have that kind of characteristics of like let's say the design, the team, the works that we're working on is
Yeah.
having impact to the world. I think that's the motivation that makes us feel like we can do something different. We
Yeah.
can make it not just purely a concept,
Mm.
because when we're developing the products, for instance, we realize sometimes the standards that we're asking for our products, sometimes the design that we're pushing out there are just so unique.
Mm.
And then our partners, they are working with like big car companies or aerospace companies.
Yeah.
They see this is completely possible
Yeah.
during the process. So we need to as well prove ourselves, right? I mean, at the very beginning, a lot of times it's purely a concept, but
Yeah.
along the time when we're working on it, we get our hands dirty, actually
Mm.
work on all the things. We can tell people that this is something that is already happening, and the industry as well is pushing a lot into making it happen. So during COVID, I would say it's good for this industry to grow
Yeah.
significantly because a lot of the let's say the funding,
Yeah.
the finances are going into this field because it's a relatively young industry.
Yeah.
People are betting on it for the future, let's say
Yeah.
5-10 years that's going to
Yeah.
happen. So a lot of the investments and talents are going into developing aircraft. So I think that's also a great opportunity for us.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you started in Taiwan. So you went to college and university in Taiwan. Is that correct?
I went to um, I went to university in Taiwan for my bachelor
Yeah.
for industrial design. Yes, and then
Okay.
intelligent mobility in London.
Okay. So do you think that because Taiwan is quite progressive in terms of technology and innovation, do you think the fact that you studied in Taiwan had a bearing on the fact that you thinking this is possible or seeing the possibility? Do you think that that made a difference?
I wouldn't say
Mm.
it was the push. So
Okay.
Taiwan indeed has a like a good foundation
Yeah.
of technologies, but to be honest, I think it's a different sector that Taiwan is good at. So for instance, Taiwan is really great at semiconductors or
Yeah.
electronics, all sorts of digital products, software, AI.
Mm.
We're really great at these kind of sectors. So that's also the reason why we now as well set up a base in Taiwan, running some sort of core technology developments.
Yeah.
We believe we can make good leverage of it. So for instance, a
Mm.
lot of the supply chain around electric vehicles are in Taiwan. So
Yeah.
even when we're sourcing products around the world, you never know. Sometimes we get products that are already made in Taiwan
Yeah.
when we receive it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in terms of mindset, I think London is still uh, at the forefront of new technologies.
Yeah.
And also the time being when we were in Taiwan, it was like before 2015, before we graduated. So at that time, this industry was never heard of. There
Yeah.
was no company developing these. I mean, they have been developing it, but it's just
Mm.
people are not like actively announcing it or being engaging with the public. And at that time, the drone industry was just starting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's completely new. So it was when we were in Taiwan, it's majorly us that we want to make use of this idea to keep developing it. And I think to really go for it and fully devoted into this
Mm.
was when we were actually in London.
Okay, that's interesting. So you mentioned that, COVID and the level of investment that came through COVID has kind of been, in a way, quite instrumental, and that's not dictated, but had an impact on things. So how has COVID, would you say, changed the aviation industry? Um, yeah, how do you think it's helped the progression of the industry in a way?
I think COVID did change a lot. I mean,
Mm,
it's very obvious, but I mean, for aviation particularly, there are a few industries that are hugely impacted.
mm,
Um, so for aviation, people stop traveling. So I mean, that's why uh, it's having a strong hit in
yeah,
traditional aviation, like
yeah,
airlines
yeah,
or airport operations, or all kinds of transportation industries. But for us, advanced air mobility as an industry itself, it actually got benefit from
yeah,
it,
yeah.
which was completely out of like people didn't really expect that to
Mhm.
happen because a lot of fundings are pulling away from traditional aviations, and
Yeah,
then they invest in this field, and
yeah,
that's one side of things. It helps to grow significantly the awareness.
yeah,
Like people are holding events to promote these ideas, and for instance as well, like COVID changes a lot on people's behavior as well when
yeah.
they rethink the purposes of traveling. Let's say when we're in London, when I was going to Spain, it's probably just like 2 hour flights,
Mm,
probably less than 2 hour flights, but we need to wait in the airport for 3 hours.
yeah.
So it doesn't really make sense, or it's not efficient at all
Mm,
the way that we
yeah,
travel right now.
yeah,
This is one side of things. I mean, people want something that is more efficient, that's more making more sense.
yeah,
Another thing is people would like to have options to travel um, with certain privacy. So let's say
yeah,
COVID changes people's behavior of engaging with people. Like
yeah.
you don't want to go to public spaces all the time. Sometimes you will probably go for private transport
Mm,
uh, rather than squeeze with everybody all
yeah,
together, get
yeah,
crowded. People's behavior would also change. And for us as a business as well, we need to improvise and to
mm,
have to be resilient in some way to interact with the environment, with the economy.
yeah,
That's why we also set up a team in Taiwan.
yeah.
During COVID, that's where we're from, and in Taiwan, we're not hugely influenced by COVID because basically
Mm,
within Taiwan, we have we have roughly a year we don't have any local cases.
wow. Yeah,
So every business is running normally.
yeah,
That's how we can start hiring people. We can start running a lot of developments, a lot of business activities, conferences, exhibitions. During COVID, Taiwan was the only place that is still holding like startup events,
wow,
for instance.
wow.
I think that's a good benefit for
Yeah,
us as
yeah.
well to make changes.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because most people don't know that actually Taiwan really didn't get hit like the rest of the world in terms of COVID. So I
Yeah,
think that's a really interesting point.
yeah,
But I think that for aviation, it's almost like it was like the worst of times, but also the best of times, because I think that on the back of COVID, you're seeing a level of innovation and aviation and aerospace that I don't think you would have seen had COVID not happened. It's such a traditional and rigid industry that it kind of, I wouldn't say needed COVID, but it needed something to really shake it up.
mm,
Really
yeah,
needs something to shake it up. So even though it had such a downturn, it's forced the industry to think different. It's forced a new level of innovation and creative thinking, which I think is going to do the industry well for decades to come. So yeah, I think it's really interesting what we're seeing.
yeah,
Um, so we are at the point now, Kai-Tse, in history where we are at the cusp of city air transport manned by everyday consumers, manned by everyday people, not companies. So, how did we get here and what does this phase look like? So, people are probably not even thinking about this. And you mentioned something that is quite crucial. You said that before you even get to, I guess, even launching an aircraft, it's about public acceptance. And I think I want to just introduce this concept so people understand the type of aircraft we're speaking about. Because, yes, we're connecting it to aviation. But like you said, Volars are a sector in themselves. Yes, they're in their air, but it's completely different to anything that we've seen before.
yeah,
So these are essentially manned aircraft by the everyday consumer. So, like in the same way that you can jump in your car, you can jump in your Volar, and it would be vertical takeoff, and you're going to be in the sky. So
yeah,
let's talk about the journey to that because people are probably thinking, "Wow, that's light years away," but it actually isn't. So what is your journey to public acceptance? Because like you said, I agree. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Next, certification of the aircraft, but even before that is
Mm,
public acceptance and getting our minds into actually this is a very real possibility.
yeah,
So what is Bellwether doing in that regard? How are you
yeah.
educating the public? Yeah.
So actually, for us as well, I mean, we are also general public in some
Mhm.
way. You know, we are
Mm.
all experiencing
Yeah.
different kinds of transportation. We start off from ourselves, like what kinds of transportation that we would like to use, and we're not gonna be afraid, even ourselves, because we're not born as pilots. I think
Hmm.
that's also
Hmm.
the same thing
Yeah.
for people to understand that most of the times people are so used to ground transport.
Yeah.
Um, Even when we're traveling in air, we are sitting in the cabin. We don't
Yeah.
understand how it is actually being operated. Most
Yeah.
of the times, we're just being taken
Yes.
to places.
Yeah.
Whenever we are in operations, we're on the ground.
Mm.
So there are a few things that we believe would be really essential for people to
Hmm.
understand. That's why the certain degree of familiarity for people to use our vehicles would be really important. They need to know this is not completely alien, and they are going to be sitting at a position that they can control the vehicle
Yeah.
when they're by themselves or they're operating the vehicles on a daily basis.
Yeah.
They need to have, for instance, at least a very smart system that can assist the drivers
Yeah.
and the information that can be so informative and so intuitive that you know what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
And the vehicle control will need to be very simple.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that we are working on the back end, on the
Hmm.
technology side, that we need to bring to public, to everyone, to ourselves,
Yeah.
that we know how to pilot it. We know how to let people use the vehicles. And to another degree, that we are also engaging with the public when they are still young. For instance, we constantly talk to universities,
Right.
constantly attend
Right.
events, is to tell people that this is already happening. We have
Right.
been working on this for quite some time. We care. We start off from the users. We're not completely just going after performance. You know,
Right.
sometimes we want to go after performance. We would bring large aircraft. We would bring propellers so
Mm.
they can fly for longer distance.
Yeah.
But sometimes when we go back to users, it's not only about how far they can fly. It's about
Mm.
how we can actually use the vehicles in our daily scenarios. So that's really important, like elements when we need to keep telling people what the industry is looking like, and also what kinds of product that they might be able to get access to. So
Right.
we also say that we are just one option that people can look at. So
Okay.
for Volar, for instance, we're targeting at daily commutes, short distance commutes,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
are obviously not going to replace other vehicles
Mm.
currently in operation or in
Yeah.
operation in the future. If let's say I'm going for a longer distance, if I'm going from, let's say, London to Istanbul, I would
Mm.
still need to take airlines or
Yes.
other aircraft, for instance. They're
Yes.
targeting at longer range,
Yeah.
cross continents, cross cities, cross countries transport.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling in London or in, let's say, other cities, Paris, Birmingham, Coventry,
Yeah.
Taipei, I would go for Volars, for instance.
Yeah.
Uh, I think people would need to know different scenarios of using vehicles and how do we complement each other.
Yeah, I totally understand that because I was born and raised in London, just to kind of illustrate your point. Um, but I now live outside of London, and every time I go into London, my stress levels, and I drive in London, my stress levels go up here. I'm like, there's too many cars on the road. London cannot actually cope. And so even though I probably wouldn't have been open to something like Volar, in the past, I think as I'm looking towards the future, I'm like, actually, if people are going to continue to buy cars,
Mm,
Volars will become almost a necessity because you actually won't be able to move in the city
mm, yeah,
almost. And in term and London transport isn't sufficient.
mm,
We've seen all the strikes and things happening there, and so you're almost going to need a third option. And that's and I guess that ties into the problem the problem is going to ultimately lead to the solution, whether in some ways we feel ready for it or not. The
mm,
fact is the current transport infrastructure cannot is not sustainable.
mm,
So you have to begin to create something that is sustainable. So
mm,
so yeah, when I think of it as when I look at this aircraft, I think, oh my gosh, this is like sci-fi. And
mm,
I think this is wild, this is crazy, I can't see that. But when I look at it from the problem perspective
mm,
and urban mobility, it becomes a no-brainer. I feel
mm.
my mind reaching a point of acceptance
Yeah. And I think
because you have aligned it to the problem.
yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think for London is an environment where we live and we are so used to every single day. So I mean, obviously there are challenges that we need to face in order
absolutely,
to put
absolutely.
vehicles in operation in cities like London, for example. For instance, it's very historical, it's very crowded.
Mm,
Like there are things that we need to think about, like infrastructure, transport
yeah,
systems, public acceptance, because it's such a big city. But like you mentioned, I mean, city problems are there, and it's probably going to get worse
yeah,
because there are going to be more people moving in, and London is
mm,
such a big major cities in the world.
mm,
But there are also problems that might be slightly different in different
mm,
major cities. For instance, like Middle East, like Dubai, for instance, uh, they are developing very very rapidly.
yeah,
They are growing very rapidly. There are a lot of people moving in to Dubai as well. They need infrastructure that can
mm,
match up the speed of growing.
yeah,
Uh, so that's why they're also looking at different sort of solutions. So the scenario in Dubai is completely different than
yes,
London. London's
yeah,
very historical.
yeah,
The roads are narrow.
yeah,
The buildings are very close to each other.
mm,
It's hard to reconstruct buildings for certain purposes.
yeah,
It's hard to build a new districts completely.
yeah,
But for Dubai, they're new. A lot of
mm,
things are new. But because of the nature of growing cities, they need something that can overcome like the sort of like the nature
yeah,
of the city. Let's say if they can grow uh in air, they
yeah,
can overcome like go across deserts or go across water area that can quickly take people to other places, and then they can grow cities on a wider
yeah,
scope
yeah,
uh, very quickly. I mean, they're addressing different kinds of problems, so that's also the reason why we need to keep telling people in different cities or keep traveling for us as well to
yeah,
understand different market. You know,
yeah,
we also have a lot of different new ideas when we were in the United States, because the United States is also having very different sort of use cases or
mm,
scenarios. They're so widely spread out. Their cities are very far away. You know, in our air transport in Europe, in our mind, is far enough. Like we can go
yes,
from London to Paris, or
yeah,
you know, can across different countries, but we
mm,
could probably not even go out of California.
yeah,
I mean, it's very different. So I mean, probably different city will have requirements for different kinds of products or different sort of use case. But this kind of products would definitely help to a certain degree, so giving people an option to travel in cities.
yeah. So what are we looking like at in terms of timescales? Because okay, so the first hurdle is going to be public acceptance. The second hurdle, and we're really simplifying these, there's loads of things that you have to navigate, but certification and regulation. So how are you addressing that?
Yeah, it is indeed a big challenge
Yeah.
for vehicle companies or for these kind of new technologies that need to be
Mm,
accepted. Even autonomous cars are also, you
yeah.
know, they're
Yeah.
waiting to be road legal, although they
Yeah.
are. But that's sort of the roadmap that we need to look at is how do we start off with technologies that are ready or partly ready,
Mm,
and then they need to be in constant testings, and then to have certain road testing or real life testing in an enclosed environment, and then that also obviously needs to work with authorities to make it happen when we're actually introducing it to certain part of city. So let's say in San Francisco, when we were visiting, we see autonomous cars actually running
mm,
um, with people.
Yeah.
on the street. So that's kind of I would say quite impressive when they're actually introducing the vehicles to run and live with
Mm.
people.
Yeah.
So, but we need to hit that sort of milestone slowly.
Yeah.
That's why now we are engaging with authorities around the world, UKCAA,
Mm.
EASA, Europe,
Yeah.
FAA in the United States, and
Yeah.
of course around the world, GCAA in the UAE. Um, we need to tell them the purpose of developing our vehicles and
Mm.
need to get their understanding, uh, the requirements, the demand from the market, and the, let's say, the benefit of using Volars. Let's say we are hiding everything inside, we're
Yeah.
ensuring the safety, we are not over pursuing performance and
Yes.
sacrificing, let's say, the people's right of living in
Yes.
cities. You know,
Yes.
that's gonna get hugely influenced if we have oversized vehicles just only benefiting the pilots or the passengers,
Yeah.
and sacrificing millions of people.
Yeah.
So it's also like mentioned, I think also to a certain degree that the communication with authorities is equally important
Mm.
to the public. And of course, the timeline that we're looking at certifying Volar might take slightly longer time
Yeah.
than other aircrafts.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
let's say other aircraft that are targeting at cross-city transport
Yeah.
with fixed wings or rotors,
Mm.
uh, they can apply to a lot of certification process that they're certifying current existing aircraft.
Yeah.
But for us, we want to develop the vehicle that is actually hitting the market that we want to
Yeah.
target. Um, so we're not gonna make it happen like the next day. So the
Mhm.
timeline is by 2028, we want to launch our services.
Mhm.
And then we are already seeing a lot of interest from private jet companies, helicopter charter companies, that they see the demand of using these kind of vehicles for starting a fleet and then operate in cities. Because
Yeah.
in that way, we can complement some of the disadvantages of using existing private jets. Let's say you need to go to far away
Mhm.
uh, airports just to
Mhm.
take off and land. You couldn't use busy airports, which sometimes is not that convenient.
Yeah.
So then the remaining part is only the privacy. But I
Yeah.
mean, for us, we can make it happen for you to travel at basically any point. So we need to make it happen slowly, engage
Mhm.
with the public and also the operators, the government, and then slowly hit the market.
Yeah. So, what countries do you think are the most promising in terms of certification and regulation? Where do you think that it's likely that Volar will launch?
Um, right now there are a few countries or areas that are
Mm.
pushing
Mhm.
quite actively, at least from the awareness or consensus
Yeah.
in the region. So the United States, the US is very much active
Mhm.
because there are quite some companies in the US developing aircrafts targeting at providing uh, cross cities, intercity transports.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's a big country in nature for aviation and aerospace developments. And so Europe as well, EASA is also quite actively
Yeah.
looking at these kind of aircrafts because there are also quite many companies
Yeah.
in Europe developing it, and the UK as well. But I would say UK right now, they are still, I mean, the EASA, I mean, Europe is still
Yeah.
leading in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Um, and the Middle East, I think Middle East from government point of view, they definitely want to make it happen. So these are the a few major areas that they are quite actively engaging with companies, but as well like Japan. Japan, they're also looking at to provide certain degree of operations
Yeah.
in Osaka to work with some companies. And I think it definitely needs time.
Mhm. Mhm.
But when we see governments, from government's point of view, they are also getting pushed by both the market and the industry.
Yeah.
Because I think during COVID, like we mentioned, a lot of investment is coming into this field that
Mhm.
pumped uh, into the industry and create a lot of jobs,
Yeah.
and then develop a lot of technologies for this industry. it is definitely pushing the market to be ready for products, or at least they see the products as happening.
Yeah.
And if let's say we already have more than 200 companies developing aircrafts, and then we have like 50 to 100 companies that are already having
Yeah.
vehicles pushing for certification. I mean, people
Yes.
definitely
Yes.
couldn't ignore that power of pushing products to be ready.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It's definitely going to take more than one company. It's going to take a collective
Mm,
and also all layers of society as well to actually make this happen.
mm.
So let's talk about, I guess, the funding aspect of this, Kai-Tse. So you're currently in a Series A round of investment. Is that correct? Uh,
Yeah.
can you tell us about your funding journey and where you are with that at the moment?
Yes, we are. I think we're quite proud of ourselves that we are very efficient in growing the business.
Mhm.
Uh, in the past, we have angel
Yeah,
investors, individuals, and some businesses investing in us. And right now, we just recently are raising a new round, and hopefully want to close it as like in a couple of months
yeah,
shortly. Um, so this funding that we are raising currently will go into uh, developing the next generation of models that we are going to build and test, and then this model will be quickly hit to certain degree of early applications
yeah,
that we're already in discussion with. So, for instance, we're looking at using the vehicles for motorsports,
yeah.
for first response, emergency use. To a certain degree, that will be quickly hitting
Yes,
the
I can
market.
see that. Yeah,
So we don't need to wait,
yeah,
for the next commercial certification of
yeah,
the
yeah,
vehicles
yeah.
to a certain degree. So now we're talking to a lot of investors around the world, seeing a lot of interest.
Mhm.
Given that we've been quite actively engaging with the public, we are only being active since early last year.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
just within 1 year, we have collected a lot of interest from the investment side, from
yeah,
pre-orders, or even future applications from
yeah,
technological partnerships.
yeah,
I think this is quite helpful for us to really build up that vision for people to see that this is already happening.
yeah.
So I mean, we have from an investment point of view, we have quite some interest from, let's say, Europe, from Middle East, from Asia, in discussion at the moment, and we are exploring the United States as well.
Okay, great, great. So, like we said, it's definitely going to take a movement at multiple levels of society to make the vision you and others in the area have for these vehicles. So, to make the vision and others in this area of aviation to reach your vision for the future. So, government, business, and public. So, with this in mind, how are you building your team and who are the key stakeholders involved in Bellwether?
Um, so we have a really balanced team uh,
Mhm.
that sort of reflects to how we started the business to
Yeah,
focus on people
yeah,
and users. We couldn't just have one voice in the company that is pursuing after certain technologies or engineering to only one side of the products.
yeah.
We want to have a balanced voice from all sectors. So that's why
Yes.
we constantly take people from different industries, different knowledge, different backgrounds. We have a balanced team of engineers, designers, business operators, marketing, branding
Hmm.
specialists, and we want to shape the team in a innovative and creative way as well.
Yeah.
We value the most not only on knowledge,
Hmm.
but on problem solving, because
Yes.
we are creating an industry in a sense.
Absolutely.
So we need to,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are facing a lot of challenges every single day. For us, it's really to think about the people. How do we make it reasonable? And also
Hmm.
constantly think about the first principle. I mean, this is also what we are taking on board is uh, to think really deep into making a decision.
Yes.
That it goes to the first principle of thinking about an issue, why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So that in that way, we don't just see we want to develop an aircraft and then want to make it fly for a certain distance.
Yeah.
It's about why we want an aircraft, or maybe we don't even need an aircraft.
Yeah.
So we want to integrate all the mindsets in the team, and then so that's why we grow the team slowly.
Yeah.
We don't want to overly hiring people, and then in a way that the culture is completely changed.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we value experiences,
Yeah.
but for me at least, experiences are going to be making us to make less bad decisions
Yes.
and then move faster to the right directions.
Yes.
But in order to find the right direction, we need the mindset
Yes.
before
Absolutely.
experiences. That's what we think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. So, what is the size of your team at the moment, Kai-Tse?
We're roughly 20 to 30 people
Okay.
globally.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. So I want to just touch on the design because what I'm going to do as well, I'm going to show a picture of the design as well so people can actually see what it looks like. But for me, it's like something out of a sci-fi movie. It calls to mind the Jetsons. When I was young, there was this cartoon called the Jetsons,
Yeah.
and they had what they called Volars in their house and vertical takeoff. But that's what comes to mind. And like the future is definitely here, like you said. Like a lot of us in the public domain, this seems brand new, but actually this has been being developed. The technology has been being used in different places in different ways for a long time, and you're just bringing it together in a brand new way. So can you talk us through your design process? Because I know you said that you're gonna the next round of funding is gonna be towards the next iteration of the
Yeah.
next model. Can you talk us through that design process?
Yes. So like you said, I mean,
Mm.
aircraft is just a product that people know, but
Yeah,
we are not that familiar with.
yeah,
I think right now that the reason is aircraft is uh, was traditionally a very complicated machine.
yeah,
Most of the times they do B2B businesses. They sell aircraft to businesses,
yeah,
and then operators, they provide services.
yeah.
Um, but it is a very historical product.
Mm,
So let's
mm,
say the moment almost we have cars, we are almost close to have an aircraft. Like it started in 1900s.
yeah,
So I think a very interesting story is that I mean when Henry Ford just when they were making the production of Ford
mm.
cars, he was already putting wings on the car just to make it.
Wow,
I
wow.
mean, so when we look back, it's already a century ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That idea, that sort of idea has been around for a very, very long time. And
Mm,
we always, I was giving some of the speech as well, talking about how this is a vision that we have been having for over a century of time.
yeah,
There are a lot of ideas that people have been trying to make cars fly.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
purpose is that we don't, it's not that we don't have airplanes, it's
Mm,
that we want to make aircrafts for our daily use.
yes,
I think
yeah,
that's the whole point.
yeah,
And in order to make it happen, we couldn't just make airplanes smaller. It's not
yeah,
how it works.
yeah.
So when we're designing the aircraft, that's why we didn't really. I mean, we didn't start off with we want to design an aircraft.
Mm,
We want to design something for cities, and then it
mm,
can fly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the whole point. So we had a very big challenge for ourselves is how
Mm,
do we make an aircraft that got everything hidden inside.
yeah,
That's the starting point.
yeah.
And it doesn't happen as a starting point in a lot of companies to start designing an aircraft
Yes,
because that's not natural.
yes.
That's not how we think of
Mm,
an aircraft.
yeah,
That that would also go back to we oftentimes give an example of designing a mobile phone without keyboards. At
yeah,
that time, it's mad. It was mad.
yeah, yeah,
How do you actually control a phone without keyboards?
yeah.
Uh, so I mean, that shaped the design process from the very beginning, we have explored a lot of different structures and configurations of how we hide everything inside.
Yeah.
We already have a few iterations, so it's sort of some know-how that we have in the company, that we know how to design aircraft with have everything hidden inside.
Okay.
And then we shape a lot of technologies around it. Of course, we use
Right.
new technologies
Yeah.
that can complement the aircraft, that can make it happen, but in
Mm.
a more optimized way. But we also will introduce new technologies that we develop for it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
when we're shaping the company, we are not only shaping everything under one umbrella. I mean, we are having a lot of, let's say, projects going in parallel to partner with different companies or
Right.
different players to make it happen.
Yes.
Let's say we recently as well branched out our Taiwan division, our Taiwan company, as a separate brand called Bellwether Advanced Mobility Solutions,
Right.
BAMS in short.
Yeah.
So BAMS will be part of the core technology development team. We want to become our own like supplier, developing
Okay.
core
Makes
technologies.
sense. Yeah.
So in that way, we can speed up some of the development, and then use our technology capabilities as well to grow the team, or
Yes.
even to help other businesses to grow. I think in that way we can move our design faster,
Yeah.
try different technologies, different teams, different capabilities. I think
Yeah. That's
in that
really
way
that's
works.
really smart actually. So you're not actually overly dependent on Volar. Obviously, that's been the driving force, but then the technology arm is going to support other companies as well. So that diversification actually of your talent pool and of what you're creating is actually quite impressive.
Yeah,
It's a really kind of, yeah, it's a strong way to kind of approach it. So no, that's good. So you said 2028 is when you want to launch
yeah.
Kai-Tse. So
So
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, 2028 is the time that we're looking at right now to certify the vehicles and then work with operators to provide services
Yeah,
that makes the vehicles market ready
yeah,
to start operation. But we're also constantly, like mentioned, talking to different companies or players to start some early applications as
yeah,
well. So we're looking at 2025 or 2026 to start some regional or some sector focused
yeah,
services or operations. Let's say motorsport is
yeah,
some part of things that we are exploring right now, in a sense to quickly provide certain degree of operation,
yeah,
and that can help to iterate the models, generate revenue, and I think the most important thing, like the most important thing that we're mentioning, is to engage with the public.
mhm,
In that way, people can actually feel it in an emerging way,
yeah,
uh, uh, and then experience that sort of uh, environments, not only for entertaining purposes,
yeah,
it's also to provide an indication of how these kind of vehicles will be used in the actual city environments in the
mm,
future. So it gives a strong sense of expectation for
yeah,
people.
yeah. So I guess thinking about your launch process, based on what you're saying, I guess I would summarize it as, firstly, you've been educating like people in universities and at that level so that they're getting used to the idea. So then you are, of course, throughout the journey, you are focusing on the technology and building models for the Volar, and engaging different stakeholders at different levels, whether that be local government, certification bodies, you're engaging stakeholders. Then you are wanting to have, I guess, micro use cases. So whether that be motorsports, but actually getting it out there in the environment so people can see it used. And then by 2028, you want to launch it into the market. But prior to that, you would have had these use cases in the public domain. So does that summarize the launch process? Are there anything else you would add or that you're doing in that launch process as we run up to 2028?
I think that's quite spot on. That's sort of the steps that we are slowly engaging with the market, with people, with governments, and on on side of it, we're also developing our own divisions of like technology arms. I think in that sense, it would have probably a slightly separate growth to
Yes.
our major products,
Yeah.
but that would also only help our business to grow faster
Yeah.
with our
Yeah.
own technologies. But I mean, the main process of launching Volars to the market is quite clear.
Yeah. And I think there's two things that I think I want to highlight about that. I think one is the simplicity of it. I think it takes a lot of complexity to get to simplicity. But
Yes.
I think in terms of your process, even though the technology can be quite complicated, the nuances and the challenges you're facing are quite complicated. Your launch process is quite simple. And I think the most effective launch processes tend to be quite simple. The other thing that I think is worth highlighting is the fact that when you're launching something like this, and a lot of launches in aviation and aerospace, they take years, and as launch strategists, that's something that we've always banged the drum about. And in other sectors, it can be companies find it difficult to understand when we say at least 18 months is kind of like the minimum to launch well type thing. But what I like about the industry that you're creating in aviation and aerospace is that they're used to long launch processes
Mm.
because the level of rigor that's required. And I think those are important things to drive home. So although this is possible now, this is possible today, if you had the certification and public acceptance, technically you could launch this. But
Mhm,
actually there's so many other things that are required to make it happen.
mhm.
But the progress that you're making, Kai-Tse, is really impressive. Like, even to go from nothing, when people were just about talking about drones, to where you are today, to having a working model, to have investment, to have stakeholders. It's really, really impressive. So congratulations. I know that we're a few years off, but congratulations on what you have achieved so far in the creation of a brand new industry. This podcast is called Launching Legacy, and that's exactly what you're doing. I think the work that you're doing today will be spoken about years and years, centuries probably from now. So well done. You really are making a rich legacy.
Thank you very much. I
No,
think I
yeah,
want to
go ahead.
mention as well at the some of the final points is because I think we're always talking about how do we make people aware of this
Mm,
industry. I think that was also
yeah,
when
yeah,
I introduced FlyCrowd to you.
yeah, yeah,
I think FlyCrowd is doing something that I quite admire is that they
mm,
are a nonprofit.
yeah,
I've been working with Maria for quite some time. We've known each other that they are promoting this industry. Their job is to voluntarily to
yeah,
educate people, to attend events, to tell people this is already happening. So I think their role is very important for this industry
yes,
because for us we are promoting ideas as
mm,
business, and for them they are speaking for the people, and they are
absolutely,
educating them. So I think people it's worth for people to check them out.
yes,
Yeah, what they're actually telling people about the industry, about what is happening, and I mean we'll be happy to support
yeah,
them or support people to understand more
yeah.
about what this industry is happening.
Absolutely, because I think, like we've said before, it's going to take a number of voices, um, and a community and the creation of a movement to actually make this happen. So I love that you have that mindset from the beginning. I sense from you that it was never just about Bellwether Industries. It was always a bigger than that. It was never going to be you alone creating this. It was about
Yeah.
coming together with the right partners, the right stakeholders, the right technology, and
Mhm.
almost forming a community around this.
Yeah.
And Bellwether Industries almost being a byproduct of that, as opposed to the other way round. Yeah, which makes perfect sense. So, what are you most excited about in 2023, Kai-Tse?
I mean, there are a lot of things that are already happening. We right now are currently testing our new model, so
Yeah,
we haven't announced it online yet, but it will soon be online, I believe.
brilliant.
Some of the new testing and new model
Yeah,
reveal. And also, as mentioned, we are also currently in a new round of funding, and it
Mhm.
will be hugely injected into new developments.
Yeah.
So in 2023, we are going to be quite actively working on new designs, which
Yeah.
is quite excited that we can't wait to tell people. And also we're going to engage with more partners to constantly educate and also work with universities. I think it's just to see the industry grow
Yeah.
is a mind-blowing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can people connect with you if they just want to find out more and they're curious about Volars and Bellwether Industries? How can they connect with you, first of all?
Yes, we are basically on all sorts of platforms,
Yeah.
most of them, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, our own website. So people can just Google Bellwether Industries,
Yeah.
find us, and I'm as well on all sorts of platform. I mean, I'll
Mm.
be happy to talk to people on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
on uh, other emails that people can ask questions whenever they want, or they want to partner with us
Yeah.
in a sense, or want to be part of the journey. I think
Mhm.
it's very exciting to tell people what we're actually doing and where we're aiming at. I mean, right now it's a very like you mentioned, it's a very
Yeah.
collaborative industry.
Yeah.
People need to work together to create an ecosystem. So it
Absolutely.
cannot be just a single company
Yeah.
that want to avoid competition, and
Yes.
then the industry will not happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're always happy to chat to
Yeah.
share.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Kai-Tse. It's been when I came across you, I was literally fascinated by the Volars. Like I couldn't believe that actually this was actually happening. And it's been really great to speak to you. We've spoken a couple of times, and every time we speak, I learn a bit more and get a little bit more excited about what the future holds. So thank you for your time. I wish you all the very best. I'm sure we'll speak again in the future, and I will be following your journey closely because what's on the horizon is very, very exciting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for inviting me to share what we're actually doing. And we'll be happy to chat again if there's ever any chance in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kai-Tse. And everybody, if you're interested in finding out more, definitely Google Bellwether Industries, and that's just BELLWETHER, Bellwether Industries. Connect with Kai-Tse on LinkedIn if you're interested in, just finding out more. And yeah, you can always connect with us as well, the Launch Strategist at thelaunchstrategist.com, and stay tuned for the next episode. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.